Okay,
Takes a little while.
yeah, let me wait till it confirms that we're,
Okay.
there we go. So welcome, everybody. This is training one of our half pass workshop.
So
We're talking about the half pass. What is it? What is it not? What is its purpose? What is the biomechanical foundation? We're gonna dive in. Yeah, so I'm going to give everybody just a quick moment to arrive. Hello, everybody. So we will have a little time for questions at the end. But what you're gonna need to do is put your questions, you're gonna need to attend on Zoom. I will try to check YouTube for the questions, but we will give priority to Zoom. Please, if you have questions, put them in the, no, not in the chat, in the Q&A. If you can't find the Q&A, go ahead and put them in the chat, but put it in all caps. And then I'll see it, because there's always so much chat, I might miss it. So welcome. Hi, it's been a little while, huh, since we've done one of these. Yeah, I've been a little out of commission for a while, but I'm back. I'm back. So. Do you want to say hello to everybody?
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
Henriette is there. Henriette Schätzchen.
Yeah.
An old student and friend of ours. I saw somebody is here from Kenya. That's the first. In Egypt, I know. Mohammed Shala. And somebody else who lives in Cairo. Belgium, I think.
South Africa,
Yeah, South Africa, I don't know. Norway. Hailing
Island, oh my God.
I know, it's amazing. It's
Edmonton,
awesome.
Canada, Sweden, all over, Oregon,
But if
Mississippi.
from Kenya, I think that's the first. We've never had somebody from Kenya, I think.
I don't know. Might be a first.
I know.
If so, congratulations, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, mine's from Klamath Falls, Oregon. Yeah. We used to live not too far away.
And Ricky from the Netherlands, and Sabina from Munich, and Terry from California. She didn't say that, but I know. Regina from Germany, and oh God, it's moving fast. Andy from New Zealand.
Awesome.
And Sophie, I can't say your last name. Can you say that? Deep
from
Trondheim.
Trondheim, oh, Norwegian, yeah.
And Kat from Brussels, Belgium. Krista from Canada. Welcome, everybody. I'm not going to go through the list of all of them, but welcome, welcome, welcome. If I didn't mention you, please, you are also welcome. Please know that you are welcome and you very much appreciated. Are you ready?
Very.
As I said, so we will try to answer some questions at the end. We may not get through all of them, but we will try to cover as many as we can once we're done with the teaching portion. If you're watching on the replay and you didn't want to watch the questions, don't worry about it, but often at the end, that's some interesting clarifying information.
Yeah.
No matter when you are watching this, you can also post in the Facebook group.
Yeah.
Questions, comments, anything.
Somebody here wants to know what the preparatory exercises are. We'll get to that.
Get to that. That's on training 2, actually. So hold your horses. It's an English expression, if you don't already know that. Hold your horses. You're chomping on the bit, I know it. I love that. I love the excitement. One thing at a time. First, let's lay the foundation. Are you ready? Let's
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. You have a share screen, Thomas?
Wait, it says share?
I'm sorry, it's been so long since I've been Zoom.
To have it on the right
window. Oh my God, hold on.
Yeah, otherwise it doesn't work.
Yeah. Hold on, guys. Yeah. It's easy. Luckily, I have everything accessible right here, so.
It's been, I don't know, 6-7 months since we've done one of these.
I know, and it's been even longer since I've done any. Yeah, I'm trying to, it's just.
It's hidden, I know, present.
No,
I'm sorry, present. Yeah, I always make that mistake, so.
With whom do you want to share it to? All of you.
Hello.
Okay, welcome everybody. This is training one, day one, officially the first day. I know we began yesterday with the mindset training. If you missed that, you're welcome to go back and watch that video anytime it works for you. Throughout this workshop, we're interspersing little mindset nuggets. But today we're talking about the half pass, what it is, what it is not, the purpose, the structure, and the foundation. Let's dive in.
Okay.
So, yeah, what this workshop looks like. So, training one, that's today. It's what I just mentioned, the half pass, purpose, structure, and foundation. Training two will be on preparation and motion, laying the groundwork for the half pass. Little secret, we're going to give you a writing exercise that day. Training three is on articulating the half pass, feedback, nuance, and forward flow. We're going to talk about problems that can come up. We're going to give feedback on videos that are posted in the Facebook group of the writing exercise that we will give you on training two. So you'll want to attend all of these. And then we're going to do a special bonus, a scholarship announcement, because we are, through this workshop, we are giving away one pass, essentially, participation into our upcoming training that pass course. You'll get full scholarship, including the Q&As, the mindset sessions, the hot seats, all of the things. You'll get everything, full support, everything. And also that day, so we'll be announcing it that day, but also that day, we're going to do a mindset session on confidence, progression, and when your brain gets in the way and says you can't. Because mindset is just as important as all the physical things, the actual training. What happens in our head is just as important. So we are interspersing mindset nugget trainings throughout this workshop. And those are all, except for the one live session, the others are all pre-recorded. And so you can watch them whenever it suits you. Okay, ready?
Yep, right.
Dive in.
Yeah. So half pass. Yeah, so we want to give you a little bit of an understanding. I will put the half
Wait,
pass.
this is what they'll get today.
Yes.
This is so you know what will be covered today. Don't dive into the training
Oh.
yet. Sorry. I'm sorry, I was not clear to you. Okay, so today we're going to, you may already know some of these things, but you may not. So we're going to cover all of it. And we're also going to cover what the half pass is truly for, because a lot of people, they know it's a dressage movement, but they don't actually know what it can biomechanically do for the horse. And we're going to cover that today. The deeper purpose of the half pass as a gymnastic movement. We're going to explore the functional anatomy of the half pass, why correctness begins long before you ask the horse to move sideways. It belongs in all of the components that build up before you do the half pass. The essential prerequisites that you need to have in place for the movement to be correct, effective, and beneficial for your horse. And the core ingredients both you and your horse need before the half pass can be developed in alignment with classical principles, of course, which is what we're all about here. So also today you'll leave with a clear framework to be able to assess where you are and where your horse is in the current work, so that you know where you have a sense of where the half pass belongs within the overall arc of your horse's development and your own development. Sorry, Thomas, thank you for waiting. Okay, now we can dive in. The half pass demystified. Little tip, take notes that you can refer back to later. And also, you can share them in the Facebook group. People do that sometimes with cute little drawings and things. It's fun. Try it. Let's go.
So what is the half pass? It's one of the more advanced lateral movements, right? I mean, there are two types of lateral movements. There's the shoulder in type lateral movement, where the horse is bending and against the direction of travel, so that the inside hind leg is the one that has to engage and cross. And then there is the haunches in, half pass related type of lateral movement where the horse is looking in the direction of travel and the outside hind leg is the one that's engaging and crossing. And for most horses, that's the more difficult one, which is why you typically teach the horse the shoulder in related lateral movements first and then haunches in half pass related movements later. And for me, the half pass is always a little bit like one of the gateways to upper level dressage. The half pass and flying changes, to me, they're always a little bit the door to serious dressage training, because they're a little bit more complicated and many people and many horses have
They are hard.
difficulties at first.
And actually, the commonality between the two is they take a huge amount of coordination for both the horse and the rider.
Right. And well, strictly speaking, the half pass, like I said, forward sideways movement, the horse is bending in the direction of travel, the outside hind leg crosses. So the front legs are on the line of travel, or you can say that you can think of it as the outside front leg is on a diagonal line, and the haunches have moved a little to the inside. And there are actually two versions of the half pass. There's the Spanish riding school version in Vienna. They ride it with a smaller angle. They ride it more like a haunches in on the diagonal. But they sometimes ride very steep diagonals. Just the angle between the body and the line is not as steep. And then there's the competition version where the horse's body is almost parallel with the long side. So you get more crossing in a sense, and you get a crossing of the outside front leg as well, not just the outside hind, but the front leg. So when you're used to watching competition half passes, and then you watch the Spanish riding school, then you're like, hey, they're doing it wrong. They're not crossing enough. So
Which is a great opportunity to go look at some of those. Do you want to do that now?
sure.
Before we get
Yeah,
to the why?
selected a couple of videos. So
Yeah, so let me stop the share. We have some videos. We're gonna now. I see what happened. Okay, so which one do you want to do first? This one?
Well, sure. It's a short little. It's nice to watch, and the interesting one is the one the
They don't
next one.
see it yet, so.
I know.
Okay. Okay, it always takes a little coordinating to get this going. Oops.
Optimize for
Oh,
just stop share.
stop share. I'm sorry.
I know it happens to me all the time. I get over eager and then I forget to. If you
Optimize for videos.
you,
And
you
we
don't
we
need
don't
the
need to
sound.
share the sound.
If you don't optimize for video,
Yeah.
then it gets jerky.
Okay. Awesome. Full screen.
Okay. So that's Pas de Deux, I think it's from 1994. Yeah, it says it with Otto Kotters and Johann Riegler, the two chief writers. And so nice
94.
1994, yes. So you see how smooth they're moving over and right next to each other. So you can see the outside front, or you can imagine the outside front on a diagonal line. The horses are looking where they're going. Inside hind leg has to step under the body, and the outside hind leg then crosses. And here they do zigzags, which is of course like the next level up from a plain half pass.
It's half passes where you're going back and forth, if you don't already know.
So yeah, that's and
It was very pretty to watch,
the
right?
smoothness of these transitions is what makes it difficult in a way, right? So you glide forward sideways, and then you hear they smoothly change the bend and they move in the opposite direction. That's actually, I mean, they make it look really easy, but it's actually pretty difficult. So that there is no glitch and no resistance and no hiccups and so on. Yeah, so
Do you want to look at the other video next?
Yeah, let's go. So we have one from Klaus Krisch. I think that's the same year, same performance with
me just a moment.
Siklavi Mantua. It's filmed from a good angle where you can see things really well.
Thank you for directing me. He's showing me where to click and where.
Oops.
Oops.
Oh, sometimes it does it. Sometimes it drops it. Yeah. Oops.
This is in the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Oh no, hold on, I had, oh yeah, it happens when I go out of it. Yeah, when I go to full screen, and it's the first time sometimes the Zoom somehow drops it, so we have to find the video again. And
Oh no, the window is closed. Oh no, oh there it is.
there it is. Yeah. Okay, and actually let me
Wait, I had to take it off full screen
yes,
so we could
yes,
find
that's
Zoom.
exactly. I was going to do that too. I did that too.
It's all this editing behind the scenes.
So now hopefully it won't drop it again.
Oh, it
Oh,
just
it
did.
just did it again. That's very annoying. So let me get so you find finding yeah, it is. And then out of the full speed. I don't know why it's doing that today. Normally it does it only once, if at all. Yeah. So go to yeah, try it. One.
Yay! I was afraid to click it.
So to go to the beginning, I want to. What's really nice here is that you see the first corner of the long side. See how nicely the horse is bending, and it goes into shoulder in, and from the shoulder in, it goes into the half pass. That's super smooth. That is really, really nice. And you can see, let me stop that, backtrack a little bit.
It's nice that this was taken from up in the gallery, so you can really, you have a great perspective.
And you see how well the horse is bending in the corner. You see how the bend in the shoulder in is the same as in the volte, and then the bend in the half pass is the same as in the shoulder in, right? So that's one of the goals, that the horse becomes so supple that you use the corner to create the bend. If you feel like the corner is not enough time, you ride a volte. The Spanish riding school actually used to, or does that, or used to do it regularly, that they would ride a volte in the first corner of the long side, and then create the bend that they need for their shoulder in or their half pass, and then take that exact same bend of the volte with you into the lateral movement. And you can see that really well here in Klaus Krishnat's Siglavi Mantua. That's that really famous stallion that he rode until he was like 29 or so.
He was an amazing horse.
Yeah. So yeah, and then of course gets a little fuzzy at the end here.
He's a really good rider too.
Yeah. So maybe just watch that again, because I mean that's really exemplary, the way he rides, and it reins in one hand, you know.
And so what's important to note is that the horse is moving into the direction that he's bending, as opposed to a leg yield, because a lot of people get confused. A leg yield, they're bending, the horse would be bent the other way, moving away from the direction he's bent, which is an easier movement than half pass.
Yeah, so here you can see it again a little bit from above, right? From a different position. You see the outside hind leg crossing, see the bend in the direction of the movement, right? So
nice, huh?
Yeah. And here's slow motion, so you see the action of the legs a little bit. And it's already over.
One more time.
And I see, I don't know what's after that. Maybe he does a half pass in the other direction. Yeah.
Well, he's zigzag.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's too bad that they only film the legs, you know, these non-riding camera people. So, but yeah, otherwise you could see the change of bend, you know, if they filmed the whole horse. But here you see that again, half pass from above. Half pass right. Here.
So this would be a good representation of a classically ridden half pass.
Yeah, and that's the finished product, right? I mean, Grand Prix horse, Grand Prix rider, he's just holding the curb reins in one hand. He's dropped the snaffle. That's for what they do for the solo. That's the old Baroque and Renaissance tradition, where the fully finished, fully trained horse could be ridden with the reins in one hand and a curb bit, because you needed the other hand for a sword or something, some weapon. So that's sort of the background, right? But then for comparison's sake, I picked out video.
Can you get that?
I don't know. A couple of videos of Carl Hester with a warm blood so that we don't show only Baroque horses, but
And so and also so you can see the contrast.
yeah.
Okay, so.
That was, where does the half pass start? Because that's a competition test, it's a
But
freestyle.
it's already at the position.
I think it's in the beginning, actually.
Oh,
It's in the
we
very,
set.
I
Okay.
know. I think it was like 3:45 or 3:50 or something like that.
No, 18 seconds in, which is,
Yeah, well, you're right. It's right at the very beginning.
but you're right. I'm trying to move it in this slow.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so now practicing. Share. Oh, it dumped this again.
There's something about the order of things that seems to mess it up.
Okay, I got the magic. I got the magic. I got it. Okay, so. Share. There we go.
Did we hit play first and then?
No, I changed the size of the screen. And then I went full screen.
How weird. That's so
It
weird.
worked.
It's like you have to say a magic spell and then it works.
Yeah.
So here's a half pass that looks more like a passage, also a zigzag. But here it changes to where it looks more like a trot. And these modern sport horses, they're bred with so much suspension that I find that the differentiation between passage and trot sometimes gets a little fuzzy. That sometimes it's not clear. Is that a passage that is ridden with a lot of ground cover, or is that a trot with a lot of suspension? Right? So that can throw you. So here it's clearly trot half pass, right? And it's a different body type of horse, a little bit more sleek, a little bit more elegant, not short and fat like the Lipizans. The Lipizans have a much rounder rib cage, right?
And their legs are
And the
not
legs are
nearly
shorter
as
and
long, so they don't move as big.
yeah, so things will look a little differently. Lipizans typically don't have as much suspension as these modern sport horses either. So, but it's a good contrast. I mean, it's a good half pass here too, right? So, and yeah, you could see the change of the bend and
What I like is that he's just so nonchalant. As he's riding, he's just like, I'm riding a half pass. You know, you don't see a lot of efforting taking place.
right, exactly. Yeah, the horse has good impulsion, so the rider doesn't have to work hard. He's directing the horse, and the horse moves. So he doesn't look like he has to make it happen. You know, it's just the horse goes where he directs with the seat and the aids.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And we have another one of Carl Hester too.
Yeah, same horse. I don't know if we even
Let's watch it.
We could, yeah.
Watch it because we haven't.
Yeah. So yeah, this clip we just showed was from a freestyle in London Olympia. That was like, I don't know, 2018, 19, something like that. And the other is a Grand Prix test in Hartbury in 2020. Yeah, so there's a year between them.
It's positioned.
Yeah, that's for some reason.
That one did the positioning, so.
Okay.
Oh, wait, did I check? Yeah.
Yeah.
It went well. 3.
So let me
Different angle.
Yeah, different angle. It's you see it best when you can see it from the front or from behind or from directly above.
And there are things here that are not perfect. We're not trying to show you perfect. We're just trying to show you sort of the more competition version.
Yeah. It's good if you think of the half pass starting with the corner before. You know, if you don't think the half pass starts at the letter, but think of the corner before the half pass as preparation. So it's almost a part of the half pass, because if you don't get around that corner very well, if the horse is not bending well, if it's not in good self carriage, your half pass has failed before it it even starts, before you've even hit the diagonal. So pay close attention to the corner and yeah, use the corner and ride voltas in the corner to prepare. If you feel like, nah, I'm not happy with the bend, I'm not happy with the balance or the self-carriage, straightness, whatever, the lightness, then ride a volta or two or three
Yeah.
in the corner. And then
in training, you have that liberty.
exactly, don't do it in a test, but
Obviously, but you wouldn't
in
be
training.
showing in a competition something that's not solid yet, hopefully, right?
Exactly.
And the horse is irritated, the spur is bugging the horse. Try to ignore that and just look at the pass, please.
And yeah, so it's a Grand Prix test, right? So it's a steep half pass. That's like the steepest half pass that happens in competition. So it's from the beginning of the long side to the middle of the opposite
What's
long
cool here is
side.
you can stop for a second. Stop. You can see because of the lines on the ground, which are parallel with the long side, you can see where the legs are stepping. And it was really cool because you could see hold on, unfortunately, you need to go back or something. Yeah, try again. I stopped somewhere, not there, because it's a bad phase. Wait, no, go there. Okay, you can see where the legs are stepping, that the legs, what am I trying to say here?
I don't know. I mean, outside front should be on the line of travel, right? And the croup is a little to the inside. And you can kind of judge the angle a little bit of the horse when you look at the parallel lines of the drag, right?
Right, that's what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say. You can see where the legs are. It's a pretty steep half pass.
Yeah.
This is by no means where you start when you start riding the half pass.
Yeah, the steeper the angle, the more the horse has to be able to collect.
But the shoulders are always leading in respect to the parallel lines.
Right.
So the shoulder is always in advance of the hindquarters.
Exactly.
The haunches should never be leading in a correct half pass.
And see how he does that change. Because you can make this change nice and smooth if you bring the croup a little more parallel to the long side and change the bend so that your last couple of strides are essentially a leg yield, and that sets you up for the new half pass. Yeah, kind of. It blends it really smoothly, so it's just a very short moment. And then when you begin the next half pass, you have to kind of move the shoulder in the new direction first. Otherwise, the haunches would be first. So it's like shift your weight more into the inside hind, change the bend, turn the shoulder in the new direction, and then move the whole horse over.
One of the tricky things is people often misunderstand and think the bend is just the head and neck turning that direction, but the bend actually has to happen through the whole of the horse's body.
Rib cage has to move and has to be very supple.
Of course, the rib cage bends less than the neck, but the bend does have to go all the way through the horse.
The left half pass looks better than the right half pass.
Yeah, it does.
Here you see the crossing of the outside front leg a little bit, and because it's such a steep angle.
It is.
And here you see the crossing of the outside hind leg.
And in the competition ring, they tend to ride the half pass in a very big forward gait, whereas classically the half pass is a collected movement.
Yeah.
Ride it in a collected trot. Worth noting.
Collected trot, collected canter. Yeah, and then of course the bigger the trot, the more spectacular it looks.
Canter too. We didn't get any canter for this.
No, it's okay. So,
just let us know if you want to see canter footage and we'll dig some up for you, okay?
Yeah. I mean, there will be canter half passes in the videos we have here too.
I mean, in another session, in the next session, we can show a little bit, or we can post some in the Facebook group too. Yes, please. That's what I figured. I want to see.
But anyway, so just to get back to that issue of collected trot or not, competition riders sometimes push the limits to make the gait more spectacular, and then it almost looks like they're flying sideways in a medium trot. And I always think that cannot be healthy for the horse's joints and tendons. That is a little bit.
It's not in alignment with with classical principles.
Yeah.
really.
And in a sense, the longer the stride becomes, the more you have to
Mhm.
reduce the angle, otherwise the horse will get injured, you know. So steep half passes in a medium trot, they're damaging, I think. You know, I think the horse pays a price for that. So
And wins joints, yeah.
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 I mean, you could do a hint of a haunches in on the diagonal and really ride forward. You know, that's sometimes good for horses that tend to get behind the eights, but then you reduce the angle and it's just really a hint of haunches in. But if you
We're
want,
getting ahead of ourselves
yeah,
here.
but
I mean, there's many things you can do to improve the quality of the half pass. That play with
right.
speed and tempo and things like that. But first, let's go back to sharing our screen and go back to our Y. I have to go grab that again. Takes me just a moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it lost it again.
Does it again, stupid thing, stupid Zoom.
I thought it was just
So it's a Zoom
it's a
thing.
Zoom thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was maybe a YouTube thing, but it's not. It's not.
Yeah.
And then.
So, but anyway, we covered the first part of what is the half pass, I think.
I think if you have any questions, please in the Q&A and we will come back to those.
So why do we ride half pass would be the next point here on the agenda. And you know, I think a lot of people are not clear on should I present not clear on why we ride movements. I think a lot of people don't really think about it. It's like, okay, well, it's if I want to show a third level, then I have to ride a half pass.
It's a dressage movement, so
Yeah.
I ride it, right?
Or
but there's a purpose for
it's
it.
fun to half passes.
There is that. It's also really beautiful to watch, as you just saw. It's really fun to ride, but there's actually a gymnastic purpose for it to develop the horse.
Yeah. I always find, you know, it helpful to remember that everything you do, every movement, every exercise has a diagnostic side and it has a therapeutic side.
Yeah.
Because every movement requires a certain skill set, it requires a certain flexibility in certain body parts, or it addresses certain body parts. And for the half pass, it's the ability to bend and the ability to sidestep. So horses have to be laterally flexible in the spine. They also have to be longitudinally flexible in the spine because you want them on the bit and not upside down. They have to be laterally very supple in the hind legs so that they can move over. But especially in half passes, they have to be vertically very supple in the hind legs because the inside hind has to land and then catch the body mass after the suspension phase in the trot. And it has to act like a spring. It has to flex so that the outside hind can cross. And then it has to push off again. So, and that's actually quite a lot that the horse has to be able to do. So when you try your half pass, you will see right away whether the horse can do all these things or whether he has a deficit in the suppleness of the spine or the suppleness of the hind legs or the strength of the hind legs. I mean, it requires a certain amount of strength to do these. And yeah, if the half pass isn't so great and you lose the bend or you lose your tempo, or the horse doesn't cross, then you know I have to work on that with other exercises. I have to improve the suppleness of the spine or the suppleness of the hind legs, the strength of the hind legs. On the other hand, the therapeutic aspect will help you improve these, you know, aspects, the flexibility of the spine and the hind legs and the strength. So you can always write everything as a diagnostic tool. And I just remember that Kalmi Kolka, one of our teachers, used to do that. He would have people do all kinds of crazy exercises, and then he would say, okay, now write your best half pass. And it seemed totally out of context. It's like, why the hell, you know? But it was just a test. He used the half pass to test how much did we achieve with what we've done so far. It's like have we created enough suppleness and so on to be able to do a half pass? And then, either works or it doesn't. And if it doesn't work, then okay, back to the drawing board. I have to work on this, on that, or that a little bit more.
And by looking at what doesn't work well, you get clues into what you can work on to improve.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. For me, the half pass is also a good exercise to strengthen the hind leg, inside hind leg. It's for me, it's an inside hind leg strengthening and suppling tool, because the inside, the quality of the half pass depends very much on how far the inside hind leg can step under the body and how well it can flex and support the body mass. And pretty much anything that can go wrong with the half pass revolves around the inside hind. Like a lot of horses will counter bend and do a leg yoke. That's because the inside hind is too far back and not flexing. It's pushing the croup up.
Yeah, it's not bending.
And then the horse falls on the shoulder that was supposed to be the inside one and looks to the outside, right? Or and then when the inside hind is too far back, the horse not only counter bends, but he also may refuse to go sideways. He may refuse to accept that outside leg and even push against you. Going in the hollow direction, the haunches sometimes lead, and the horse kind of careens sideways and leaves the diagonal and doesn't go forward anymore, goes too much sideways, not enough forward. So the inside hind leg is moving too much sideways, it's not stepping under the body, and then maybe the horse actually bends the neck too much in the direction of travel, especially if the rider is pulling on the inside rein. And then everything falls apart. So again, it's the inside hind leg. Usually every problem you have starts with the inside hind leg.
It's just a different problem with the inside hind leg.
Yeah, and going in the stiffer direction, the inside hind leg tends to lag behind. In the hollow direction, it tends to run sideways too fast. So inside leg and engaging the inside hind is this very important prerequisite for good half passes. And people get focused on sideways, so they use too much outside leg and they forget the inside hind, they forget to use their inside leg.
And then they pull on the inside rein to try to achieve a loop of the bend, which actually suppresses the inside hind to be able to come forward and bend. And so it becomes a big hot mess.
Right, exactly. And a lot of riders begin their half pass by pushing the croup sideways when they're on the long side. And then the haunches are already leading, and then the half pass is already failed before you've even actually made it onto the diagonal, right? So keeping the shoulder a little ahead, keeping the inside hind leg under the body is super important. And then that outside hind crossing, that's third or fourth in a sense, right? First is really position the shoulder, bring the inside hind leg under the body, and then everything else can follow.
But the funny thing is, all of that is beneath the surface, because when you look at a half pass, you see the horse moving sideways, you see the outside hind crossing over, you see the bend. The horse bending the head and neck, maybe is what you notice.
Yeah.
But those are actually not as important as all the other things.
So ride the half pass to check the basics. How much have you accomplished? Are the basics good enough so the horse is able to do the half pass? If not, which aspect is lacking? The flexibility of the spine or the flexibility of the hind legs, or both? Therapeutic aspect, strengthen the hind legs, inside hind leg especially, supple the inside hind leg.
It's a great suppling exercise for the whole horse, actually, for the rib cage, for the hindquarters, for the shoulders. It really supples, it tests, but it also supples the whole horse and strengthens, especially that inside hind. It's a super powerful exercise or movement that is very demanding of the horse, but also very rewarding to ride.
Yeah, and because it flexes the inside hind leg so much under the weight, it can be a great preparation for a trot lengthening. It can be a great preparation for a passage. Because the inside hind leg becomes the outside, and if you can really compress the outside hind leg and let it bounce back, you can develop passage steps out of that transition. And in the canter, flexing the inside hind leg very much between the weight and the ground sets you up for flying change. So canter half passes are one road to flying changes. And Klaus Frischlet, who we saw there in the solo, he did that. He teaches flying changes that way. Canter half pass, center line to the wall, stop, and then canter on the new lead. And he does it a few times, and then at some point he doesn't stop anymore, and he does a flying change.
Yeah.
So that it's like loading the spring of the inside hind so it can push off with power. And you can use that pushing off power for like extended trot, for a flying chain, for a passage, and so on. So a half pass can be a stepping stone then. Like once they know half passes, you can use it to prepare something else, right? So it's another aspect of why half passes are good.
Great.
Yeah, and then how does the half pass benefit or develop the horse? Basically, we already covered
Yeah,
that.
we were covering
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Exactly. So it supples the horse, it strengthens the horse.
Mhm.
You could
It tests,
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we write it, but
Yeah, and it develops the brilliance of the gaits in a way. It helps to develop the quality of the gaits. Especially in combination and in contrast with the lengthening and transitions into another, like half pass in the trot to canter or half pass at the walk to canter can be really a good combination.
Mhm. It can help you bring many elements together.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gymnastically extremely beneficial to the horse.
Yeah. If you do it right.
If you do it right. Now, that's the tricky thing, right? There's a lot of bad half passes too. That are done. What makes a bad half pass? Not the qualities, but why do bad half passes happen?
Lack of preparation, focus on the wrong things. If you focus too much on pushing the croup sideways, or if you focus too much on bending the neck, then the horse gets crooked and loses balance. Yeah, not preparing the horse thoughtfully with riding a good corner, then positioning the horse, like bring the front legs on the line first and then move the hind legs over, or bring the horse into a shoulder in position and then move into the half pass. There's two ways you can start it, right? You can either pretend you want to change direction across a diagonal, you turn the shoulder onto the diagonal, and then when the hind legs have reached the diagonal, you ask the horse to yield the haunches into haunches in and just, adjust the angle and the bend so it becomes a half pass. Or shoulder in on the long side and then shift the weight more to the inside, outside leg and rein, take the horse over into the half pass. Those are the two ways, classical ways in which you can develop the half pass. Like once the horse knows the half pass, right? And then of course the other issue that leads to bad half passes is if you don't prepare the horse, not within the ride, but long term, like from a macroscopic level, if you don't develop the horse's ability to bend and to turn and to sidestep and to carry behind and to push with the hind legs. If you don't develop those basic skills enough, then and you just tell the horse, come on, horse, go sideways, then it's gonna be many things, but not a half pass, probably, so.
Is that enough for right here? Do you want to get into prerequisites?
Sure.
Okay, so do you want to precede this with why there are prerequisites?
Well, I mean, everything is located within a certain gymnastic development, right? And the half pass is one of the more advanced movements. It's a complex movement pattern in a sense because it involves bending and sidestepping. And so you have to develop that ability of the horse to bend and to sidestep. And that's why you can't just take a green 3-year-old and try to ride a half pass, right? Because he knows nothing. Can't expect a kid to do advanced math if he's not learned to add and subtract, right? It's kind of the same idea. So you develop the horse's ability to bend by riding circles and corners and voltas and serpentines. Basically, you practice bending and turning on a single track for a while. And it starts with the first day on the lunge line with the green horse, right? You already have to move on a circle and then you try to make the circle round, you try to make the tempo steady, and then the horse learns to bend when he balances himself on the round circle. And then at some point you introduce sidestepping. And the bend, sidestepping with a bend against the direction is much easier than sidestepping with a bend in the direction uh, of travel. It's easier to make the inside hind leg engage and cross a little bit. And it starts easy, with enlarging a circle. You can move the horse one horse's width to the outside. So front legs and hind legs have to move over a little bit. The inside hind leg is then the one that has to move a little bit diagonally towards the outside shoulder. That's probably the easiest form of sidestepping. And then you can develop that into leg yielding, and you can use turn on the forehand in motion and things like that. And at the end of that development, you have the shoulder in and the counter shoulder in, right? But you can start easily, with the enlarging and then ride a circle and move the haunches to the outside or move the haunches to the inside of the circle while you counter bend a little bit. These are easy, more leg yields related than shoulder in related, but you can use them as stepping stones towards shoulder in, counter shoulder in. And then once the horse is comfortable with shoulder in and counter shoulder in, then you can start haunches in and renvers and half pass and things like that. That's why, Igor von Eindorf always used to say that the training progression is corner, volte, shoulder in, haunches in, half pass.
Well, you can get to that.
And we get to that. Yeah, we
Yeah.
can't repeat that enough times, really.
Yeah.
And Hugo Rohrer from the Spanish Riding School said the same thing in a lesson, with me many, many years ago. So it's those are fairly reliable milestones in the training that you should respect. Don't try to ride a half pass before the horse has learned to enlarge the circle, for example. That would not go well. Right. So stick to that and don't try to ride a lateral movement before the horse can bend on a circle or on a volte before he can do good corners. But on the other hand, of course, lateral movements will improve the quality of the corner and the volte. It's always like the more advanced movement improves the more basic movement, but the more basic movement creates the foundation for the higher movement. So you go back and forth between them, and you feel like they improve each other.
You want to talk about the prerequisites for the rider specifically? There's two things here.
Yeah, well, yeah, the rider too, of course. So you can ride lateral movements in all three gaits, right? The easiest at the walk, it's usually good to teach the horse the new lateral movement at the walk first because it's nice and slow. There's not that much momentum. There's more time to think. The horse has more time to think about his legs and his balance and so on. The rider has more time to think, okay, and how do I need to sit? Which aid do I need to give? When do I need to give it? And so on. So the walk is a good gait for exploring, studying, explaining to the horse, and learning yourself.
Yes,
learning the
very
feel,
much so.
learning the coordination.
We're big advocates of walk.
Yeah. In German dressage, the walk is often neglected a little bit.
Avoided.
Yeah, avoided because they're afraid that they might mess it up.
And if you're just holding on the reins
Yeah.
and pushing the horse, you are gonna mess up the walk.
The Iberians and the French use the walk a lot more, and I like using the walk for explaining and exploring, studying, observing, developing the body awareness of the horse, and also developing my own feel for the horse and the movement.
Years ago, we used to study videos of Nuno Oliveira riding these old videos that you can now find on YouTube, and it was beautiful and so inspiring and different for us at the time to watch the work that he did. So much walk work and suppling the horse, preparing the horse with the walk. He'd do a long walk warm up with lots of suppling lateral work, and then he'd go from there into the canter work, and that was mind blowing coming from a different school of thought.
Right.
But we actually ended up integrating a lot of that, exploring it, trying it, seeing how it worked. And we really loved the results, so now we do that and we share that. And yeah, we've integrated it in with everything that we learned before then and thus far after then too.
Yeah. When you ride lateral movements in the trot, they're usually ridden in the collected trot. Classically, they're always, and in the competition test, it always says collected trot, shoulder in, half pass, whatever. In the collected trot, you sit the trot. That's the classical tradition, right? I mean, it doesn't kill the horse if you post, right? But in the classical tradition, when you ride a collected trot, you sit and lateral movements are ridden in the sitting trot typically. For a while, the competition riders only set the trot in the competition tests, from what I've heard. They did a lot of the training, most of the training in rising trot, even in the lateral movements. And you can do it. I mean, you can actually place certain accents if you post on the correct diagonal, the wrong diagonal.
As a tool.
So, yeah, as a tool, it can be beneficial sometimes, but by and large, normally you would sit the trot when you're riding lateral movements. So you should be able to sit your horse on trot when you start working on half passes. If you can't sit the trot, then your seat and arms and legs and so on are not going to be independent enough to apply precise aids that are well coordinated with each other. Also, you should be able to, ride the horse consistently on the bit and through the back. Yeah. So that goes both ways. The horse has to be able to balance himself and so well, and has to be so supple and so straight that he can consistently go through the back and on the bit. And the rider has to be able to sit and aid in such a way that they don't disturb the horse. So the horse is able to go through the back and on the bit. Yeah, if you want to work on canter half passes, the horse has to be able to canter in a certain degree of collection. So they should be able to do plies and voltas and
And the
so on.
rider too, if
And
you
the
want to
rider
be
too.
able to ride a canter half pass, you obviously should be able to ride a collected canter. Let's move on to the next one.
Yeah,
This is what you were
yes, I already
mentioning. Yeah.
anticipated that. So progression, corner and volte is bending and turning in gymnastic terms, right? Turning the shoulder with a bend through the whole body. And the hind legs following the footprints of the shoulders, or they should at least. Shoulder in is bending, sidestepping with a bend against the direction of travel. Then haunches in is sidestepping with a bend in the direction of travel. And half pass is like the step up from haunches in, right? It's like haunches in plus just usually a little bit more angle and a little bit more collection and so on. Sometimes you get these very fierce debates whether the half pass is a haunches in on the diagonal or not. And some people say, no, it's completely different. Other people say, yes, it is just a haunches in on the diagonal. And for me, I always look at it as a continuum, right? Between single track where the angle between the horse's body and the track is 0 degrees, and then the extreme version of a lateral movement where the angle is about 45 degrees. Yeah, and you should explore everything between 0 degrees and 45 degrees. Just keep in mind that the steeper the angle, the more the horse has to collect. Like the non-crossing hind leg has to support enough and flex enough that the crossing hind leg has the freedom to reach forward and across. If you make the angle steeper than the non-crossing hind leg is able to support, the horse will get crooked, he'll fall in the forehand, he'll do a leg yield of sorts, but not a proper shoulder, haunches and a half pass, right?
Yeah.
So there is always an upper limit for how much you can move the haunches or the shoulders away from the line of travel. And you'll feel it when there's resistance building, when you're losing the tempo, when you're losing the softness, when you're losing the bend, when the quality of the gait deteriorates, then you've probably made the angle too steep. Some horses do it to themselves, some horses just run sideways,
Yeah.
and then you have to catch them, reduce the angle and so on, and then the purity of the gaits will improve again. Yeah, so you can see the half pass is like the end point of that development, right? In terms of lateral movement. So the horse has to be able to bend and turn on a single track. That's voltas, serpentines, figure eights. Then the sidestepping with bend against the direction of the of travel, shoulder in, counter shoulder in, and then the precursors to shoulder in and
Or
counter
if
shoulder.
you ride leg yield, that would
Yeah.
fall within the shoulder in,
Yeah.
or before the shoulder.
It's a stepping stone to the shoulder,
Yeah.
and it's a precursor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So turn on the forehand in motion is a good precursor, a good way to develop the suppleness of the haunches for half passes, for example. Pirouette renversée, we haven't mentioned. That's a turn on the forehand where the horse is looking where he's going. That's related to half pass, and that's a very good exercise to either prepare a half pass or to interrupt a half pass. If you ride a half pass at the walk, you can do a pirouette renversée, where just keep pushing the croup sideways until it travels around the shoulders, and then you could continue with your half pass.
Really related to a renvers, so
Right.
it's extremely beneficial,
Yeah.
but not so easy to ride.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so yeah, and haunches in, especially when you think of small angles, the haunches in would be a great step between shoulder in and half pass, as a teaching tool, as a learning step. Yeah.
Next page.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Prerequisites.
Well, we were just doing prerequisites.
Exactly,
yes.
yeah.
But now, for some reason, you put it separate, even though we were talking about the horse there.
Yeah, exactly. So here it's more text. We had a list in the previous page. So yeah, develop these stepping stones and teach the horse the skills that go into the half pass, so the bending, the suppleness of the spine and the hind legs, right? Suppleness of the hips gives you makes it easier for the horse to find that half pass position. That's actually where turn on the forehand in motion and pirouette renversée come in really handy. Like if you feel like the horse is really stiff behind and blocking the sideways movement, you can do some turns on the forehand in motions and pirouette renversée that loosens the horse right up. And then when you go back into a half pass, it's going to be a lot easier. And the was talking earlier about the half pass being an inside hind leg exercise to supple and strengthen the inside hind. And of course, you can't expect a green horse to do an advanced movement like the half pass right, off the bat, but you have to develop these abilities in small increments. So I always think of it as a ladder or a staircase that you build for the horse that has many very small steps. If you go from 0 to half pass, it's going to fail. The horse is going to be frustrated. It's going to be scared of you. You're going to be frustrated. But if you develop it in very small increments, if you break these skills that go into the half pass down, then it's easy. It takes a certain time, of course, to install all these skills and develop the suppleness and the strength, but it makes it all seem attainable and not intimidating anymore. And you can develop this lateral suppleness of the spine and the inside hind leg with all the curved lines on a single track and the milder forms of sidestepping, like this enlarging or letting the haunches yield a little to the outside or the inside on a circle, and the vertical suppleness that they need for the half pass, you can develop through transitions: walk, halt, walk, trot, trot, halt, trot, canter, walk, canter. Turns on the haunches is another one. Yeah, in the turn on the haunches, the weight of the forehand is transferred to the inside hind leg, and then of course in the reinback you can shift the body mass onto the hind leg, so the hind legs have
press
flex.
the hind leg.
Yeah, so these shoulder in related exercises are also very good for engaging the hind leg, because we we work the hind legs, we gymnasticize and strengthen the hind legs with the help of the body mass, right?
Mhm.
The body mass can only reach the hind leg if the hind leg is under the body mass. So if your horse doesn't naturally step under the center of gravity, you have to bring it under the center of gravity with some form of sidestepping with a bend against the direction of travel. And then when it's there, then you can flex it with the help of the body mass. And that could be a half halt, it could be stirrup stepping, it could be down transition, it could be turn on the haunches, it could be rein back, right? So that's in terms of building exercises for your horse, yes, ask yourself, is the hind leg that I want to address underneath me, or is it behind me? Is it off to the side? If it's not underneath me, I will engage it with some shoulder in related kind of lateral movement. It doesn't have to be long. It can be 3, 4 strides of some sort of sidestepping exercise, and then maybe flex it by turning. If you ride a corner or a vaulter, you flex the inside hind leg, and then the culmination of that would be the turn on the haunches pirouette, right? So you can, it's like a kind of Lego system. You take building blocks, and I need a building block that brings the inside hind leg under the body, right? So sidestep a little bit. Then I need a building block that flexes it between the ground and the weight. And then you have these lists of options, and you can combine them in any way that you like.
And those become the riding
Right,
exercises,
exactly.
right? Any number of combinations of these can create some better and some less as good results towards your aims.
Yeah. And then also, of course, every lateral movement is written on an arena pattern. So
Exercise.
yeah, you have to be able to ride correct arena patterns in order to be able to ride a movement. So half passes are written on diagonals. So you need to be able to ride a very straight diagonal so that you leave when your knee is on the ladder, of the old long side, and then you arrive with your other knee on the opposite long side. And it's a straight line like somebody drew it with a ruler, not a wave. And you see a lot of half passes where people arrive like too early or too late. So in other words, the horse actually drifted away from the line of travel because he was crooked. So
and the rider wasn't looking where they were going.
yeah, exactly. So make it a habit to ride straight lines.
Right, precisely.
And yeah, from letter to letter.
Yeah.
And it helps not to think so much in terms of, oh, I'm going to ride a half pass or whatever, but I'm going to ride the walk or trot or canter. That's my highest priority. Best walk, trot, canter we can ride. And then we ride this gait on a line and make this line as straight as you possibly can if it's a diagonal. And within that lower priority, let's move the haunches a little bit. But don't sacrifice the quality of the gait, don't sacrifice the line.
Such good points.
Yeah.
Absolutely good points.
Because that's what happens, right? People get preoccupied. Oh, half pass.
They get fixated on suddenly now you're in a lateral movement and everything else goes out the window. You have to prioritize the line and the quality of the gait.
Yeah. So quality of the gait is really steady rhythm, steady tempo, not too fast, not too slow.
Swinging of the back.
Yeah. Good balance, yeah. So the horse is on the bed through the back. Enough energy, not too much, not too little. Too much energy turns into tension.
Yeah.
Too little energy means the horse doesn't have the power.
Drags their feet.
Drags, exactly. Half passes are harder for the horse than just cruising on a straight line on a single track. So you have to increase the power, you have to increase the energy in the horse. Otherwise, he'll get slower, he'll drag his feet, he'll break the gait, So you need a certain amount of energy to make it through. Yeah, exactly.
You don't need to, whack, whack, kick, kick to make the horse have more energy. You need to have the energy at your disposal to work with.
Exactly. And yeah, we already talked about corners and voltes, so the horse should be able to do a corner in 3 strides of the inside hind leg. That's also a Spanish riding school tradition. He has to be able to perform round circles, round voltas, which means same number of strides for each half of the volte or each quarter of the volte you can count in your head every time the inside hind leg touches down. And if it's not the same number of strides in each quarter, then your volte is not round and it's something else. Right? Not round means horse is crooked, not balanced. When the horse is not balanced, he'll be bracing somewhere because otherwise he'd fall down. Right? So it's this logic, this method to the madness in a sense. It's not arbitrary, right? All these prerequisites, they have good reasons.
Yeah.
And if you sacrifice some of these, yeah, you won't get a good half pass.
You're
right?
building a faulty foundation.
Yeah.
Essentially, and the house will topple later.
Yeah. And yeah, the bend in lateral movements is the same as in the corner or as in the volte. You know, I mentioned that before. And when you want to ride a lateral movement with a lot of angle, like 4 tracks, right? That is a steep angle that corresponds to a small volte, right? So the horse has to bend much more on a 4-track shoulder in than in a shoulder 4, or in a Grand Prix half pass than in a haunches in on a shallow diagonal, for example. So the angle of the half pass and the bend have to match, and they correspond to a certain volte of a certain size. So you can think of what size volte can we perform in the trot or the canter. What's the smallest volte we can do? Smallest volte is always 12 strides of the inside hind leg in circumference. And depending on the stride length, that could be a 6-meter volte or it could be a 12-meter volte, right? Mm-hmm. So we a 12-stride volte, what diameter is that? And then just for the fun of it, you could ride a diagonal, ride the smallest possible volte, and then stop at the end of the volte when the outside front leg hits the track. Now look at the angle between your horse and the diagonal. That's the angle you can ride in the half pass with your horse at that point in time. If it's not enough for a competition, for example, if you need a steeper angle, you need to develop the horse's ability to bend and turn more. So you have to be able to ride a smaller volte if you want more angle in your shoulder, in haunches, in half pass, whatever lateral movement. So that's a really important connection. I think that's not explained enough usually, or people don't realize it enough.
Yeah.
And then they wonder why their lateral movements are not so great, because they probably try to ride it with a steeper angle than the corresponding volte that they could do. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
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 So just food for thought. So,
Yes.
yeah, I think so.
Okay. So, yeah, we'll get to the questions in just a moment, but I want to let you know there is homework. Okay.
Just a moment.
Should you choose to do it, there is a checklist of these prerequisites. It's a PDF you can download in the course platform. You can then take it and assess your and your horse's current level of readiness, fill in the worksheet, share your findings if you want. You don't have to share, but any other observations, your notes from today, whatever you would like in the Facebook group. And we will be seeing you for the training day 2, which is preparation, motion, laying the groundwork for the half pass in 2 days. If you're watching the replay, well, check the calendar. I am going to stop the share.
Yeah, I can look at comments.
Yeah, we can answer questions now. Oh my gosh. Okay.
I know there are lots of them.
31 in the Q&A. Wow, you guys are amazing. Okay. Can you start on that? And I have to zip out and go to the bathroom really quick. I'll be right back.
Yeah. So Monica Kochinger wants to know what are the preparatory exercises for the haunches. We've essentially covered them, right? So bending, turning, and then bending and sidestepping with a bend against the direction of travel. And we'll get into that more in the next session. Right? So Francis Sizemel says tempo and rhythm can be quicker when leaving track and become stronger in Russia. How is it? And becomes stronger and rushes, how is it best to prepare this? When the work gets harder, the horses sometimes either slow down or they rush. And of course, on the short side, in the corner, beginning of the long side, you're on a single track, and then you begin your half pass. Half pass is more work than single track. So some horses get bogged down a little bit. They lose power and get slower. And other horses feel that increase of the weight, on the inside hind leg, and they feel like they can't support that much weight for that duration of time. So they rush a little bit. How to prepare? Could be that it's an indication that the half pass you're riding is still too big of a leap from where the horse is to where you want to go. So a possibility would be to ride a different diagonal, a shallow diagonal, and ride it with a relatively shallow angle. So instead of going, from A to B or C to E or MXK or FXH, you could go from the beginning of the long side to the end of the quarter line. So you're going 40 or 60 meters straight and only 5 meters sideways. That makes it a lot more manageable for the horse. And then you prioritize the quality of the gait, the tempo, the rhythm, the impulsion, and so on. And only move the croup over as much as the horse can do it. And then you can gradually make your diagonal line steeper, and you can bring the haunches around a little bit more. And that will probably fix it over time. Sonia Fitzpatrick says, can you explain the difference between aiding the half pass in the trot, where there is crossing of both the front and hind leg of the diagonal pair when the opposite diagonal pair of legs on the ground, compared to the canter in the moment of suspension when there is no crossing? Seat is pretty similar.
I mean, you don't want to be aiding every stride.
Right, exactly.
So it's not like you're aiding in the sequence of the rhythm of the movement, because if you're having to aid every stride, you need to go back 6 steps. So basically, you set it up and then you let the horse maintain the half pass. You set it up, you ask the horse maybe to move over with 1 step. You set up the angle, ask the horse to move over, and then you watch. And in the half pass, if something needs correcting, you can correct it. But otherwise, you want your horse to maintain this on its own.
Yeah, in the canter, it's important that the horse
And
lifts the forehand high enough. Otherwise, they kind of fall on the forehand, and then it's almost like they sort of walk sideways. So you need to keep the bounce in the canter. You need to keep a very much uphill posture.
The seat is really what shapes the show here, though. It's not so much the legs and the reins, hopefully.
Right. Yeah. So bounciness of the canter is super important. Uphill balance is important. And I used to think that, well, I want to do this half pass. My horse would prefer to go straight. So I lift the forehand as much as I can, and I tell the horse I want to do a full pass, like with a uphill balance. I tell the horse I want to go this way. And he says, well, I want to go this way. And then we kind of compromise on this way.
The thinking is if you have more bounce, you have more air time. The more air time you have, the more able the horse is to be able to use that air time to move any direction. Of course, they can't change direction when they're in the air, but they can then cover more of that ground. They can move more sideways instead of if they're sort of on the forehand and barreling forward, you can't move much sideways. Open the door real quick. It's really
if you lose the bounciness, like the suspension in the canter, you feel a growing resistance from the inside hind leg. And then it doesn't feel good anymore, and it doesn't look good anymore. So you really have to imagine the horse can only travel sideways when all 4 legs are off the ground. Otherwise, it becomes sort of this walking kind of bastardization, of a canter half pass. Maria says, do you prefer the SRS method for half pass or competition half pass, and why? Oh, that's a good question. I mean, when you watch Otto Kottas and Klaus Kirsch ride, I mean, that's pretty much how I would like to be able to ride.
That's what we always say
yeah.
before in our writing.
Yeah.
But I have ridden the more competition style when I competed because that's what they were wanting to see and they were rewarding and they would really condemn you for not riding that way.
Yeah.
The point in my mind was not that I'm catering to them, but if I'm in good control of my horse, I should be able to put the hindquarters and the shoulders wherever I want at any time. So I can change my half pass. I can ride it with more of the angle or less of the angle, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, I play a lot with the angle too. I like riding lateral movements with a very, very shallow angle. Because then the focus is more on getting a good bend and getting a good feel of the quality of the gait.
Those of you who are familiar with our concept of homeopathic doses, we use that a lot in the half passes.
In all lateral movements, and then on some level, it's actually harder to ride a lateral movement with less angle because you can see more clearly if the horse is bending or correctly or not, if the bend goes really through. And then when you can get a good bend on a shallow angle, then you can gradually increase the angle and see, okay, where's the limit? At what point does the quality fall apart? So yeah. So for me, it's all a continuum. You can ride it with more angle, less angle, whatever works for the horse at the moment. You can try and push a little bit, where's the edge of the envelope, and then maybe go back. Or in the half passes, especially, I like to interrupt the half pass, ride a vault, prepare again, start over. So I like to interrupt the long diagonal with voltas or shoulder in rectangles or shoulder in squares and stuff. So you come back fresh with better quality gait, and then you do a few more strides and so on. It's another important thing that you don't feel like you have to see it through to the bitter end, and even if it kills you, you will stay in that half pass until you reach the next long side. So just go in and out, right? When you feel like, nah, I don't like the way this feels anymore, exit, recreate whatever got lost, the impulsion, the bend, the balance, whatever, and then start over, or re-enter the half pass at a different point of the diagonal. So,
next question.
Yeah, Shannon, where's Clark says, so the Priest and George has the vaulted to the half pass, same idea, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sorry. I wanted to jump into this. They're really doing you a great favor there.
Yeah.
They're giving you exactly what you need to set up for your best half pass by giving you a vaulted right before. It's an awesome gift.
Yeah, the Priest and George test is nice. It's well designed, it's thoughtful, clearly by somebody who knew what they were doing, who knows gymnastic training. Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are tests that don't flow well, where it's like, what the hell were they thinking?
Yeah, like, okay, I can do that, but it makes no sense. Yeah.
But this Priest and George is a test I always like. It has a nice flow to it,
Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely use the vault to develop the bend that you need for the half pass.
Yeah.
So shoulder in vault at half pass, right? It's a brilliant setup in a way. Shoulder in is a great preparation for half pass. Vault is a great preparation for half pass. So having both, sets you up really for an easy success in the half pass. It's an easy win.
Okay, Anne-Marie.
Anne-Marie says, am I correct in assuming a prerequisite to riding half pass is being able to ride shoulder in and haunches in? Yep. Exactly. We covered that, right? But yeah, you should.
I should probably ask the question earlier, but
before we
yes,
covered it,
absolutely.
Yeah. Stephanie Thompson says those shoulders are always leading, just clarifying, because I always picture half passes with the shoulders and hindquarters even. In the competition, they're almost even. The judges want to see the horse almost parallel to the long side.
It's the popular thing right now.
In theory, I mean, the judges would probably tell you the shoulders should be leading slightly.
They mean slightly, right?
And it could be that in practice, the competition riders push the haunches a little bit more, so the judges won't say that, well, not enough crossing or something like that, right?
Yeah. It's happened to me when I rode with the shoulders leading more in the classical way. I was told that the haunches were not crossing enough. On video, you can see they are.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, inside hind leg has to be able to step under the body. If you push the sideways movement too much, the inside hind leg will start traveling next to the body rather than under the body, and then you've gone too far.
Yeah.
And of course, you can kind of play with this a little bit, like start with a certain angle and then see, well, what happens if I move the haunches a little bit more? And is he still bending? Is the inside hind leg still underneath me? Do I still feel like I'm sitting on the inside hind? Or at some point, do you feel like, oh, now my horse is leaning on the outside shoulder and the haunches are passing me, kind of, inside hind leg is running sideways and is overtaking me, and then you've gone too far. When that happens, easiest fix is to go from half pass into shoulder in. So either parallel to the long side shoulder in or turn the shoulder 90 degrees, then you've caught that inside hind leg and then ride a shoulder in rectangle, basically.
There's so many that we have a
Yeah.
bunch of really good exercises that can really help with
Yeah.
that issue. Jennifer Smith?
Yeah. She says, what other lateral movements must myself and my horse be able to do before we even attempt this? That, yeah, we covered that. So enlarging the circle, ride a circle with where you let the haunches yield to the outside, or you let them yield to the inside with a bend to the outside, leg yield on a diagonal, shoulder in, counter shoulder in, little haunches in on a circle on the long side. They should all be doable. Don't need to be perfect, but the horse should have an idea of those, and you too. Exactly.
It's all doable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Laura Gavonsky, should you start a walk first in the half pass? Yeah, I would teach the horse lateral movements. Yeah.
And yourself
at the walk.
Yeah.
It's easier, it's slower, less physical.
There's more time to think about things. Yeah. It's a great schooling gait. And suppling, I mean, the half pass of the walk is great for suppling the horse. Once you and the horse know it, it's brilliant in warm up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Lawrence Jensen's how to improve the half pass in the canter. Can we do shoulder in the canter?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can. It's actually
It depends on what you're trying to improve, because there's a number of faults that can happen in the half pass and the canter, and they're not all addressed in the same way. But yes, absolutely, you can do shoulder in the canter.
Yeah. It sort of depends a little bit on what the issue is with half pass, but what often works really well is if you canter whole school, move the croup a little bit to the inside, so it's like 3 strides, haunches in, move the croup back out so you're on a single track, maybe turn the shoulders onto a volte and then repeat. Croup in, straight, turn the shoulder, or croup in, a little bit shoulder forward, shoulder in position, and then ride a volte. I think things like that, just moving the croup around creates that mobility and that suppleness that you need for the half pass. And of course, you could do the same on the diagonal. Canter, diagonal, haunches a little in, straight, ride a volte, or from that haunches in position on the diagonal, ride a volte, and engage the inside hind leg as you're turning onto the volte, and then start over. So it's playful. So move the croup a little, move the shoulders a little bit, engage the outside hind, engage the inside hind. I find that often works really well. With some horses, you have to increase the bounce if they're kind of flat, and
it's a common problem.
Then develop the bounciness by accentuating the lowest point and the highest point, and then driving a little bit so the hind legs jump more.
So basically, you're improving the quality of the canter before you actually try to ride the half pass again.
Yeah.
So
Tina, we sometimes have trouble with neck head set, letting the nose going to the outside, the neck to the inside, rather in trot, rather on the bend side. Any idea why we run into this? It's probably an inside hind leg issue. If the horse wants to counter bend, the inside hind leg isn't flexing enough under the body. It's probably lagging behind a little bit. So I would get the inside hind leg to step under by riding voltas or shoulder in, things like that.
Or even enlarging, like even in the half pass, you're riding your half pass, you can then change your mind and enlarge away from the inside leg. Move away like a leg yield, but or thick shoulder in, but away from the line loop instead of shoulder in would be parallel to the long side, right? And move back away and then come back into it. There's any number of things you can do, but yeah, get the inside hind underneath and so that it can bend again. It's usually because it's not coming along.
Mhm.
Deanna Sinclair Parker.
Yeah, so riding competition style seems to be to impress the judges and less concerned about the horse's long-term health. That's the pitfall sometimes, yes. Would riding more Spanish riding school style be less favorable while competing in competitions?
Yeah, depends on your judge, of course.
Yeah.
Depends on your judge. Occasionally you'll, if you know your judges, and I used to study who I was riding under, so I knew, and certain judges I avoided at all costs because they just rewarded the wrong things, in my opinion. But yeah, you know, you're gonna find that, like I mentioned, that you're gonna get comments that, you know, that you're writing it differently than they like to see.
Yeah.
I was, of course, writing a lot of liposons, and the judges I was writing under didn't like liposons either, so, you know.
Yeah, one thing I've seen in competitions too is that people would, on the one hand, push the angle, and on the other hand, they would push the stride length so that the horses started to look lame. They would become arrhythmic, like they would have a big step and a short step. Like one hind leg would take a big step, the other one would take a short step because they were pushing the limits too much. And that's
driving that outside hind leg over.
And then, of course, you lose the purity of the gait, and then the whole house of cards collapses. And that, I think, in the long run, will, you know, take its toll on joints and tendons too.
Yeah.
So be careful with how much angle you use. Be careful with how big the strides are. You know, don't ride a medium trot in the half pass. It still has to feel smooth, and it should feel easy. And in training, you could reduce the level of difficulty by riding a very shallow diagonal with very little angle, you know. So it's really a homeopathic version of the half pass. And then when, you know, in the homeopathic version with a very shallow angle, you can send the horse more forward, which often makes it easier too for the horse. But because it's a very small angle, it's okay. It's not unhealthy for the horse. And then as the horses become stronger, more supple, and so on, you can gradually increase the angle. You can use a steeper diagonal, you collect the horse more, and so on and so forth. So it's a progression, you know, that may take you a few months, but it's small steps rather than one gigantic leap, you know, from 0 to Grand Prix half pass or so. That wouldn't be realistic, right? But if you go through all these many little stepping stones towards the Grand Prix half pass, and it's not that big of a deal actually.
Yeah.
And Marie says, if my horse is not going forward enough in the half pass, do I ask for more forward with my inside leg? Yep. Inside leg is responsible for forward, and outside leg is responsible for sideways, so to speak. And in that case too, if you lose impulsion, maybe ride a shallower, different diagonal, a flatter, shallower diagonal, and less angle between the horse's body and the line. And then gradually increase as you feel my horse is now able to do this easier version of the half pass easily and with good impulsion and like a metronome, you know, then try it a little steeper, try it, make it a little bit harder. And Jennifer Smith, we've talked about trot and canter. Is it ever written in the walk? Yeah, absolutely.
Not in competition, but we don't necessarily need to be only talking about competition here.
In training, absolutely. Walk half passes, walk zigzags, super helpful. And walk is a great gait to introduce the half pass. I mean, I typically, you know, do it in the walk first until the horse kind of knows what I'm talking about and he knows what to do. And then you can, you know, if the walk is easy, try the trot. If the trot is easy, try the canter.
Yeah, I mean, you make it playful.
Yeah, Shannon says, I have heard the half pass is the haunches in on the diagonal. That seems to mean that the haunches would end up leading. No, not really. The outside front is on the diagonal. You move the croup a little sideways. Like if you ride a haunches in on the long side, the haunches aren't really leading either, right? The inside hind still needs to step under the body. And if you practice haunches in on the long side and then basically write the exact same thing on the diagonal. Picture there's a wall on your outside. get ride with a
Or
steady
draw a
feel.
line on the ground or put poles on the
Right.
ground and ride your haunches in along that line and you'll see.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. You can always experiment with how much angle can I do before I lose the inside hind or before I lose the bend, you know. So it's you learn a lot by trying things out and by exploring and experimenting, you know, and then you'll feel like, okay, this feels good, and a little more doesn't feel good anymore, you know.
Yeah, so
So-
Veronica also asked, can you do a half pass and a walk? Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Ingela Ekelund says, I'm riding a PRE who is well schooled and I play a lot with the shoulder in travers, half pass and counter bends. He is like many PREs, almost too agile and seems to have an extra hinge in the back. So I'm struggling to get him to really use his back even in riding these movements. How do I help him really use his back?
Yeah, with some of the Baroque horses, or the horses with a round rib cage and a short back, they don't bend so easily. But they find moving sideways easy. So they get very enthusiastic about lateral movements, and they offer you very steep angles because then they don't need to bend in the middle.
It's actually an invasion.
It's an evasion, exactly. So if the lateral movements seem super easy for your horse, I'd be a little paranoid, a little suspicious that it's not real, it's not honest. So the horse is just sidling around and basically leg yielding all over the place.
You know it, you feel it because the back movement isn't there. That's your indicator.
Yeah, so for horses like that, I would do the homeopathic doses, very, very shallow angle, and then interrupt every few strides by riding a vault to reestablish the bend.
Or
and then-
straight,
yeah.
so you're riding a tiny little bit and go back, tiny, go back, you know, it's so little bits. And only ride as much as you can keep the back movement.
Yeah, focus more on bend and lifting the withers, lifting the back, stretching the top line, and not so much, don't focus so much on sideways. For this horse, you might actually be good to ride shoulder in or shoulder four on the long side, and then ride a circle, let the horse stretch forward downward, pick the reins up again towards the end of your circle, or ride one whole circle forward downward, ride a second circle where you pick the reins up, then continue your shoulder in, and then repeat, you know. That's a really, really nice exercise to get the back to lift. And you can use stepping patterns, stirrup stepping, to get the horse to lift the back more.
Yeah. Deanna asks, what age should we begin a young horse with a half pass and what gait should we begin? Can it be taught during groundwork? Great question.
Yeah, you can do it sometimes it's good to introduce new movements in hand, for example, because then the horse just has to balance himself and not the weight of the rider on top of
And
that.
it's something you can absolutely do in hand.
Yeah. Yeah, we do it in the walk first, of course. And young horse, well, you know, as soon as your horse can do some shoulder in.
It's really not about age, it's about development. You could have a 12-year-old that doesn't have the prerequisites, right? And you could have a 5-year-old that's ready to begin half pass at the walk. Yeah, so it depends.
Yeah, important thing is that they can do nice round circles and voltas with good bend, that they can do a shoulder in, counter shoulder in, and then, you know, you can start with haunches and half pass.
Hey, Shannon Moyes Clark, half pass at the walk to canter half pass. I use the turn on the haunches at the walk to the canter for the pirouette. So this is the same idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you can ride transitions within the half pass, also canter, half pass, walk, canter, walk within that same half pass. Brilliant exercise. Not so easy, but brilliant. And same idea with the walk, pirouette, canter, pirouette, walk, pirouette, canter, pirouette, same thing. Or in the trot, it's great to do trot, halt, trot transitions in the half pass. I mean, that's, of course, you know, when the horses basically know half passes and they're familiar with it, then you can improve the half passes by doing transitions within the half pass. That's quite good.
Let's try to sit through these. We're running out of time and we already have people leaving. Okay, so Monica Koch Engel says thanks, questions already answered. Okay, she must have changed it. Ingela Ekelund says to clarify, he doesn't bend evenly through his body, which makes him avoid engaging his back despite all my efforts. I often ride the schools and walk step by step
Mm.
and trying to keep him active in his back, but he's like butter on a hot potato. Yeah. Good
Yeah,
description.
yeah,
Yeah, I think we answered it though.
yeah.
Yeah. Deanna says, can any of this be done bareback and with a bitless bridle, i.e. total contact?
In theory, yeah, try it. See what happens.
Bareback for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely. Bitless
Bitless
bridle for
bridle,
sure. For sure. Bridleless, you know, uh,
Well, once the horse knows it, then you can ride it bridleless. If the horse has never done it, it might be a little difficult.
yeah, say, you're welcome to try, it's your horse. You know. Cat and Punked says, Heidi Poole asks, is it better to think shoulder first and then ask for the sideways?
Yeah, that's one possibility I mentioned, right? You can initiate your half pass basically in one of two ways, right? You can either pretend you just want to change direction on the diagonal, and once the hind legs arrive on the diagonal, you say, oh, by the way, move your croup a little bit. Or you can start with shoulder in, like Klaus Krisch showed in his solo performance, corner, shoulder in, and then half pass out of the shoulder in. That's also typical classical initiation of half pass, and it works really well.
You reminded me, Kat, that I need to check the YouTube. Thank you.
Yeah, Corinna Newman says, good idea to explain to the young horse the sideways movement from the ground.
Yeah, it's not a nice.
You don't have to, but you can. A lot of horses find it easier if they can do it on the ground first.
But it's not the only way. It's
Yeah.
nice to know there
Yeah.
are multiple ways that you
Yeah.
can introduce these things to the horses. It's valid, yes.
Yeah, so I would go to the work in hand when I try under saddle and it's not working, and I feel like, oh, the horse doesn't get it, the horse, I don't know, there's resistance, then I would say, well, maybe it's easier on the ground without my weight. And yeah, so it's never wrong to start with a work in hand. It's not necessary with every horse, but if you want to do it on the ground, that's no danger in that. There's, it's always a safe way to do it on the ground first. And if you try something on the saddle and it's not working well, usually work in hand is a good way to kind of bridge the horse's understanding gap, with the work in hand first.
So Teresa Siffer asks, hi, so is the half pass different from renvers?
Oh yeah, the renvers is one of the counter movements. It's the counterpart to haunches in. It's the haunches out, right?
Yeah.
Typically, you would ride it, for example, on the long side with the haunches on the outside track, shoulders on the inside track, but the bend is to the outside. Or you could ride it on a circle, then the haunches have the bigger circle, shoulders have the smaller circle, but the horse is bending towards the outside of the circle.
Yeah, I don't have my handy little board anymore. It fell apart.
Yeah.
But I had little magnetic horses that I could demonstrate with you.
Yeah. And half pass is ridden on straight lines, right on a diagonal, and you move the haunches to the inside.
Okay, England says, I do find it easier to engage his back in the schools and canter, so I go from walk to canter. He's well educated, does very nice engaged pirouettes and piaffe, but often loses his back in passage.
Yeah, it's one of the
It sounds like that's his
typical challenges in the passage. And horses start to lose the hind legs and then the back drops.
And they tend to then brace the rib cage too.
Yeah, what you could try though in the passage when you feel it is like you think of a hint of haunches in. So you engage the outside hind and move the croup maybe half a hoof breadth to the inside, 3 strides, and then shoulder 4. The haunches go back on the first track, shoulders come half a hoof breadth to the inside. You engage the inside hind, and then that way, like you remind the horse to bring the hind legs and don't leave them behind. And so outside hind leg a little bit, inside hind leg a little bit, and then you could reduce that, and then hopefully the horse will stay in the middle and you have a better passage. So you could also step into a front leg then, like step into the outside front, engage the outside hind with your outside leg. Stepping into the outside front slows the outside front down a little so the outside hind leg has a chance to catch up. And then you could step, once it has caught up, step into the outside hind, now flex it a little bit. And then you could do the same inside front, step inside front, drive the inside hind so that it catches up, step into the inside hind leg. So that's like a sequence of many steps, right? And by the time you're through it, you're almost at the end of your long side probably, or halfway down the long side. It's, so you can bring the hind legs underneath you more and then flex them a little bit with your weight by doing these little things, stepping, engaging, half halting, whatever.
Okay, so Paula Zima says, I've heard you mention the plie movement. I'm not familiar with that term. Please describe what the movement is. Thank you.
It's a shouldering related canter movement. It's you usually ride it on a diagonal where you ask the horse to move away from the inside leg. Like you could turn down the center line and then leg yield out to the wall away from your inside leg. And it's a little bit like a shoulder in on a diagonal line. Old classical movement. It's very useful for engaging the inside hind. It can also become a preparation for half passes. You can do zigzags like that too. You could begin a half pass from the long side and then leg yield out. So if you're on the left rein, left lead canter, half pass a little bit away from the wall, and then leg yield out without changing leads. Then these zigzags can be super effective. Or counter canter, leg yield away from the wall, half pass back to the wall. So there's all kinds of variations on the theme. And Marie says, reminds me, Thomas exercise, plie to half pass, I don't know, or somewhere in there.
Sorry, I was just scrolled up really fast. Oh,
Sorry,
yeah,
yeah.
canter plie to half pass. Yeah,
Yep,
exactly.
exactly, that's a good one.
Okay, Paula Zima, that one we just answered. Okay, Jennifer Smith, what do you mean by perform correct corners with three stride of the inside hind?
In the Spanish riding school, they, at least in the past, they used to ride a corner in 3 touchdowns of the inside hind because they figured out that that is the smallest turn you can do on a single track. And if you ride 4 consecutive corners, that ends up being a whole circle, a volte. And the smallest volte you can ride has 4 times 3 strides in circumference, so 12 strides. A 12 stride volte is the smallest circle you can ride on a single track. That's what Tommy Kolka taught us, and that's comes out of the Spanish riding school tradition. If you want to make it smaller, you either have to ride it as a haunches in or as a shoulder in.
So go try to ride your corners and try to count the strides of the inside hind touching down. And each stride is 1 count. So try to ride your corner in 3 counts of the inside hind. A younger horse, of course, is going to do a shallower corner.
It's still 3 strides. It's just
because their strides are
the
bigger.
strides are
A
longer,
more
yeah.
advanced horse can collect more, so it's going to be deeper in that 3 strides. Go try it, play with it, and let us know what you discover in the Facebook group. Marliese Bohm says, you say that the bend in the half pass is the same as the bend in the volte in the corner, but does the bend through the length of the spine also depend on the angle of the half pass, much like in the shoulder end, meaning that the bend in the body needed to reach the quarter line at E would be less than the bend needed to reach the opposite end of the skull at EB?
She says you answered that, yeah. Exactly, yeah, we explained that, yeah.
But, I mean, it's a great question, yes.
Good question, but
Yeah.
yes, answer is yes.
Yes. Laura Gravonsky says, what is the best aid to use to create a forward movement, blunt spurs or a dressage whip? Kicking, I know, is both rude and ineffective.
Well, the whip creates movement, right? Tommy Kolka always used to say the whip brings the horse to the leg brings the horse to the seat brings the horse to the bit. And spurs you can use to improve the bend and to improve sidestepping.
For horses that respond
suppleness.
well to
Yeah.
them, not all horses do.
Yeah, but spur is not really primarily a forward driving aid. It's really more of this suppling aid in a way. But yeah, vibration of the whip is a good tool to generate movement.
There's that, but then I would also ask, what is blocking my horse? What is preventing my horse from moving forward? You should have a lot of ample energy to work with. If you're feeling like you're always needing to create more forward, more energy, then look at where the blockages, the obstacles to that energy cycle are in the cycle of energy within your horse. And that is where we go looking for, where the energy leaks are, what's happening, and yeah. And there's a lot to find there. I hope, I can't go in depth into that right now, but I hope that gives you makes you curious enough to go looking. Okay, so Francis Sisimo says, would you recommend starting this book in handwork? Yeah, we answered that, and the answer is yes. Shiana Fairley says, are there any groundwork exercises that increase lateral and other flexibility?
Yeah, in work in hand, you can do voltas, you can do turns on the forehand in motion, you can do shoulder in, you can do haunches in, half pass even,
Bravo. Yeah, turn
yeah,
on the forehand, all of these,
Yeah.
full pass. Yeah, full pass is where the horse moves directly sideways. It's only done in the walk. Yeah, or should only be done in the walk. I mean, in working equitation, they try to do it in all gates. But, yeah.
If they're super collected,
Yeah.
you can do it in the
Yeah, you
canter.
can, but don't just try that at home just because. Okay. Trisha Kettle, Hank or Hockey, I'm not sure, says, where should riders' hands be during the half pass? I've been trying to keep them steady in the same position as I come off the circle or volta, so as not to overbend. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it should be in the same places where the hands are when you're riding other things.
Yeah.
What you can do though, you can support the outside leg by moving the outside hand to the outside away from the neck. It uses essentially the horse's neck to help move the croup over.
The little lever.
Yeah. It's that
in the training, once the horses knows it, you don't need to do this.
It's that indirect reign of opposition in the French system.
Yeah.
And it can be quite effective. But of course, by the time you're competing, and showing half passes, that shouldn't be necessary anymore.
Using the half pass regularly in your regular gymnastic dressage training if you're not competing or exhibiting or anything, which most of the people here don't do. But you're using your half pass regularly in your work, and at that point you probably don't need it anymore, but in the early stages that can be helpful.
One thing I've done with some horses, if I wanted them more uphill and if I wanted better bend and so on, I would ride a half pass and lift my outside hand to lift the outside shoulder of the horse higher and then drive the inside hind leg with a vibration of the whip or with the inside leg. So really focusing on forward with the inside hind and then lifting the outside shoulder. And so you can transfer the weight from the outside shoulder onto one of the hind legs, depending on when exactly you're lifting it, but you have to release again too. So that would be sculpting the gait. It's not something you would do in a competition, but in training.
And I wouldn't say just to go around just willy-nilly doing that because it might cause more problems, but it is an option when we're getting to the artistry. Okay, so Anne Marie says, does it make sense that I find it easier to ride half pass on stiffer left rein versus hollow right rein? Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense to me.
I mean, the horses like to move the haunches towards the hollow side more, but that often then leads to the haunches bleeding or the horse drifting away from the line. In the stiffer direction, it often feels harder, but it's more correct. I find.
Exactly.
And in the hollow direction, it's easier to get the horse to go sideways, but it's usually not as correct.
It's hard to control the haunches. The horse overbends, bulges over the outside shoulder. All of these problems happen in the hollow direction. But in the stiff direction, yeah, you might find the bend harder to achieve. It's harder to get the horse to move sideways, but what you do get is more correct. So, yeah, makes sense to me. So Maria Blumen says, in your experience, is the volta or the shoulder in
Best preparation for half
the best preparation or does it vary
varies.
from horse to horse?
Both good, yeah.
Why do we
It
have to
varies from,
choose?
I know. They're both really good. Use a combination of both. Try one, try the other. Or do, volta in the first corner of the long side, few strides, shoulder in, then half pass. It's something I do a lot actually with my horse. So take both, you don't have to decide one or the other. Figure eights are actually great preparation. You can ride a figure eight on the short side. Bolt the right, bolt the left, bolt the right, bolt the left, and then when you feel ready, ride a half pass, either from the center line or from the long side.
On the other hand,
Yeah,
I love riding the half pass from the shoulder, and I think just even
nice feel.
one or two steps of shoulder in right at the beginning of your half pass is a great way to pre-seat your half pass, set it up for success. Even when I was competing, I always did that coming out of my corner or wherever. I would ride, one or two steps of shoulder in and right into my half pass. So it looked like part of the half pass, right? But I was really setting my horse up for the half pass.
Yeah.
So Deanna says, is training gated horses different than non-gated?
It's harder.
Yeah.
My observation is that a lot of gated horses tend to lock up in the rib cage. They often don't bend very well. They are prone to bracing in the rib cage, and then they switch to a different gait. I always find one of the biggest challenges with the gated horses is to separate the gaits so they're not just crisscrossing over between all the additional gaits, and getting a clear walk, a clear trot, a clear canter is often like the biggest challenge I find. And
She says, okay, great, all my horses
Yeah.
are gated. It's still, you can still
It's-
work with it.
it's
The
beneficial
dressage
for
work,
them.
the gymnastic work is still really beneficial
Yeah.
for them. But don't compare your reality to somebody else's reality. Riding
Yeah.
a Lusitano, a Lipizzaner, a Warm Blood or something. Don't compare your horse to them because your results are going to be very different. What you're looking for is to benefit your horse.
Yeah. The gymnastic dressage work
I
is
looked good.
super beneficial for the gated horses.
Yeah.
I used to have clinic students with Icelandics, and very often they would do a nice walk on the vaulter, straight line, then you go into shoulder in and they tilt or they pace or something. Because now they locked up in their rib cage, and
Because they found it
Yeah.
hard, so their go-to is to brace the rib cage, and then that would instigate the
Yeah.
gait.
And the Icelandics tend to be short backed and very round. They're very bulky with short legs, so they often go way too much sideways. So they're horses where the really homeopathic doses are beneficial. Focus not on sideways, focus on bend and just millimeters, move the croup a couple of millimeters in or out, or move the shoulders a couple of millimeters out. And then my Icelandic students then told me that when their horses become really supple through the dressage work, their tilt is suddenly much better. So the additional gaits are better.
Yeah. She says, I attended a Western course years ago with my Kentucky mountain horse. He was the only one that did a half pass amongst all the horses.
Awesome.
Cool?
Henrietta says, I once had a Missouri Foxtrotter in training. I had to be super patient with all basics.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you have to
exactly.
concentrate on different things a little bit. Your
Yeah.
focus has to really be on quality of the
The
game.
purity of the gait and
Yeah.
purity of the rhythm takes on a whole new meaning when you're training
But
gated horses.
it really makes you a better rider.
Yeah, it makes you better rider, and it benefits the horse. I mean,
It
if
really
you're
does.
a stickler for the purity of the gait and these basics, these horses become a lot better at their day job, whatever that is. They become a lot smoother, a lot sounder, a lot more supple, and they learn to really separate the gait so they don't just blend them all together.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's worth the effort.
It is. Definitely is.
So
Just a different journey of choosing. It's okay.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So let me just scan through.
Okay, we have 4 minutes and
Chat.
we've really got
Yeah,
to end it
I
at
know,
2
I know.
hours because
I just want to see if there's anything we need
there
to
were
respond
questions in here, but it's
to.
okay.
Yeah, Antje Lang says, I'd be interested in the ideal tempo for the first attempts, also in the development from clear aids when you start teaching the horse to subtle ones. Could you describe the development? I think we'll get into that in one of the next
Yeah,
trainings.
let's talk about that in the next training
Yeah.
because we're going to teach you a writing exercise. It's really the how. And so let's get into it then, okay?
Yeah, in terms of the tempo, it should be the same. Before the movement, during the movement, after the movement, it has to be like a metronome. That's one of the challenges, right? That the horses are not allowed to slow down, they're not allowed to speed up. You have to count the strides.
Okay. Shannon says, so the pre-St. George has the 8 meter vaulted to the half pass, which should set us up, but I get stuck trying to keep the bend and the flow tends to get lost.
Yeah, it would be interesting to for you to think about how do you do that? What do you do exactly? How do you ride the transition? I mean, maybe from, in that setup, vaulted to half pass, how do you do the transition? Do you push the crook sideways too early, maybe? Do you hold your breath? Do you feel like half pass and then you stiffen up? If you let it flow, ride your volte, stay on the volte until the shoulder is on the diagonal for the half pass, and then move the haunches sideways.
I have your fix, I think. I bet you're losing the inside hind right before you go into your half pass, so I would, in your 8 meter vaulted, at the very tail end of it, enlarge a little
Yeah.
bit. Think like the shoulder in the last few strides of your vaulted, so you really get your inside hind underneath, and then you can go into your
Mhm.
pass. It'll still look like you're vaulted, it'll still look good, it might even look better, because if you're losing the inside hind, your vaulted doesn't look as good. Try that.
Mhm. Yeah. Uh, and Marie says, all right, shoulder into medium trot to make sure the inside is engaged, hind leg is engaged. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shoulder into medium on a diagonal is a great exercise,
Yeah,
great
it's
combination.
perfect, yeah.
So, sleeve. Okay. And Marie says, love riding volte in corner into shoulder in down long side to half pass. Yeah, it's a very logical progression. You build your half pass by riding a volte in the corner and then a shoulder in, and then you take that whole package into the half pass. Like you almost can't go wrong when you do that.
Yeah, and sorry, when we have the screen share on, we can't see any of the chat, so I
Yeah.
couldn't stop the screen share
Yeah.
so that you can read our lips better. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, shoulder wide enough will include groundwork. Not here for the workshop. That
But you
would
can,
go a little too
yeah.
far, but you can do, all kinds of
Absolutely,
works in there.
absolutely. Let's see. Reading through these to see if we have, there's just a lot of chat. Here's a question.
Here, Uncle Schwartz want to know, does it depends the strengthening of the hind leg on the gait you're doing the half pass? Is it more effective in the trot than in the walk, or does it depend on how well it is ridden? Well, gymnastically, I mean, it's more challenging in the trot and the canter than at the walk. So, from a physical workout, gym kind of point of view, yeah, you get more bang for your buck if you ride half passes in the trot and the canter. But in the walk, you can explain it to the horse. You can familiarize the horse with it. You can work out the kinks. Okay, where are the challenges? What's difficult? How do I need to sit? How do I need to aid? And that sort of thing. So you can work out the technique in the walk. And then when you feel like, okay, I've got a handle on this and it feels pretty well, pretty good, it flows well. And then you try it in the trot. Well, Beverly. So I try to do half pass from different exercises, get a few steps, and Sansa changes the bend to the leg yield. I do keep the weight to the inside, what would help. Yeah, he's probably losing the inside hind, and so it goes out behind probably, so it no longer flexes under the weight. At that point, I would exit the half pass and bring that inside hind leg back underneath the body, and then resume the half pass. Initially, it's realistic to think of being able to get maybe 3, 4 strides that feel pretty good, and then it will gradually fall apart. And then, when you feel the quality of the gait deteriorating, then leave the half pass, ride a vault, or ride a shoulder in, ride something that engages the inside hind, improves the bend, restores your tempo, your impulsion, lightness, throughness, whatever you lost. And then once you have it back, and re-enter the half pass and continue. You can re-enter where you left it, or you could, start over. Depending on what you want to do. So yeah, like I said, don't think you need to see it through to the bitter end, right? Just when you feel you're losing quality, then exit and start over, or repair, and then start over.
So Deanna asks, does it help to have a metronome out in the arena to listen to while we're writing? To keep time to help improve timing of the game?
It can.
If that helps you, you can play with it, experiment with it, see if it helps. For a while, we used to listen to music at certain, certain music that worked. And that was nice. It was more about setting a mood for us though, than
If the music is not too fast and not too slow for your horse, it can help horse and rider to find the rhythm, to find that
if that
tempo.
helps. You can also
helps.
just count in your head.
Mhm.
That's what I did a lot of. I did a lot of counting the strides in my head just over and over and over and over. And that really helped. Regina says, so preparation and walk would be after a volta, ride 1 or 2 steps haunches in, then forward again.
It's one of the exercises I like to do, like move the croup in, move the croup back out. And you can do that in, out, or in, out, and volta. So because you move the croup and then you move the shoulder. You move the croup and you move the shoulder. That really supples the horse's shoulders, the hips, the spine gets more supple as a result. And you can do it in all 3 gaits actually. And of course, if your horse isn't quite supple enough for haunches in, you can do this even as a leg yield, nose to the wall, croup in, flex to the outside, croup back out, bend to the inside. That's actually really useful because it also involves a bend of the spine, a change of the bend of the spine. So that's a nice variation. And so you develop the horse's suppleness to the point where then, they can do the haunches and they can do the half pass.
Okay, just a few more questions that just showed up, and then we have to go feed animals. So Pauline Burns says, thank you about gaited horses. I have found the same thing, harder to bend through the ribs. My horse also gets pacey.
Exactly. They get pacey when the rib cage gets stuck, when they freeze in the rib cage.
That's
They start
is bracing and stuff. Yeah, work on suppling the rib cage. Yeah. Maria Bloman says, thanks. A combo with Volta followed by shouldering is my go-to approach. Adding figure 8s at the very start sounds like a good addition. We'll play with that. Yeah.
Let us know how it goes.
Yeah. Ingela Maritson says, I do agree with you that if you get a good bounce and trot, it is much easier to get true bending in the spine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
And there we go. Thank you, everybody. So, next training, we're going to go over a writing exercise and talk about the how. So meet us then, and there will be another mindset nugget tomorrow. So see you guys later. Bye.
Thanks for watching.